Welcome back to Tracer Customs, everybody. Working on the tow truck today. I know we have been doing a lot of videos. We haven't had a lot of time to work on anything cool. We've had a lot of other projects going on, been busy on them. Luke's back in school right now, so we don't have him here as much, so we haven't been able to do as much welding. Fortunately, we've got most of the welding done we need on this. We are about to put a tow package on here. We got to customize that because it doesn't fit, obviously, anyway, we'll get to the tow package later. We have two big problems right now that we've been trying to resolve and we haven't got fixed yet. One is we have carburetor problems. We have an Edelbrock carburetor and it's not working. We took it off the other day, like 2 days ago. We took it off, took it apart, tried to clean everything up on it, hoping we just had some clogged ports or something. And that has not solved our issue. Right now, when the fuel pump kicks on, I got fuel just running out of the top of the carburetor. So there's some issues with the carburetor. I'm this close to just replacing it. The problem is me, Tim, Luke, none of us are really carburetor guys. This isn't the stuff. I mean, I grew up working on one of these with my grandpa, but I didn't do this type of stuff. I was just a kid helping out, you know, pulling a 454 out, converting to four-wheel drive, some stuff like that, but I wasn't really that involved. So a lot of this we're learning as we go because we haven't been working on carburetors for 20 years. We're not that old. Our first trucks were not carbureted. Well, I think Tim's Jeep might have been, but either way, these are not our expertise. So we're learning as we're going. We're trying to do our best and do research and talk to people, and we've been getting some great input from some people that do know a lot more than us, which is helping. But carburetor is one problem. I'm going to pull it off again. I'm thinking there's some floats in there that probably have to do with when fuel is shut off coming into it and some things like that. It doesn't help how much stuff's been done to this truck before we got it. It was an EFI truck originally, and someone converted it to carb, and now we're dealing with some of that. And this isn't even the system I want on here in the long term. I want the HAL TBI system, throttle body injection system, but it's like $2,000, and it's just not in our budget. We have a small budget, new businesses, new truck, trying to figure all this stuff out. We can't afford the stuff we want. That's why this truck isn't done. But I need this truck operating as soon as possible. I need this truck to start making money so we can start, well, making money. We need to make money somewhere. So I'm going to try to work on this carburetor some more. I don't know if I'm going to get to that tonight. It's late. It's like 6 o'clock already. I just came over here after everything else to try to work on some of this. The other big issue we're having is starting issues. Right now, it will not start at all. The starter is, something's wrong with it. We've already put a new starter on it. We've been dealing with hot start issues for a long time, and they've gotten worse. So I'm going to start going through some wiring and ripping out some old wiring that's no longer necessary, that's under the dash. I've got to figure out the ignition switch has been partially bypassed already, and there's a push button in the dash, and I don't know if we're gonna, there's nothing necessarily wrong with that unless something was done incorrectly or we've got a loose wire, or there's so many things. Like we've got old CB cables, we've got an old trailer brake controller. There's just a rat's nest of wires under the dash here, and some of it's disconnected, no longer in use, old stuff. Some of it needs to be potentially hooked up somewhere proper. There's just, the whole truck needs to be rewired, but we don't have the funds again to do that right now. So we got to make it work with what we got. I might buy a new carburetor if I have to, but I really don't want to spend the money on a carburetor because it's not even what I want on the truck in the long term. But Rendezvous in the Ozarks is coming up. We went last year, and we're going again this year. Tracer Customs is going to be out there. We're going to have a booth. It's going to be a little different this year. We are going to be able to do installs. Not installing carburetors, but we're going to be able to do installs on like lighting, two-way radios, cell signal boosters, some of the basic electronic stuff that we can do while we're at Rendezvous. We're going to have limited amount of manpower, limited amount of time, limited amount of space, but we're going to do what we can. Tim and Luke are planning on being there, I believe. I'm going to be there. I'll be in and out because I'll also be doing some other stuff. Hopefully we have the tow truck running and baseline operational by then where we could do some basic recoveries. I don't know if that's going to happen, but we're going to try our best to do it. We'll see. All right. I need to get to work. I need to try to get some stuff done, start making some progress. We're just going to start working through our list of main things that we need to get done. So let's get started. We got work to do. I got a few things removed. Here's a little pile of junk. Yanked the radio out, brake controller, a few miscellaneous cables and brackets. It's looking a lot better, and I'm kind of figuring out how. So the ignition on this has been worked on in the past before we got it. So the key here, sitting on tools. The key here, the ignition does play a role, but this push button over here is what actually tells the motor to crank. So that's one of the wires I wanted to trace out and see how they did that. So what they did was they ran a couple wires from there, and then one of them taps into the steering column wire. See if I can show this to you, because this is what we're dealing with right here under the tape. Pulled off the tape, and this is what I'm finding. I don't know if you can, let me move the light here. That right there is how they tapped into that. And then under the hood, so they tapped into the ignition wire in the steering column there, and then under the hood, the other wire comes out here and taps into this blue and purple right here. And basically what I'm finding underneath any tape like that, the wires are just twisted together and taped up, which in theory will work, but it's not how we need it done. So we need to make that better, or we need to fix the original ignition switch. These things are really prone to go out because the ignition, I can't really show you, but it runs, there's basically a rod that runs down through here and down into the switch on the steering column. So they're notoriously a pain to keep working, and you got to kind of tweak those rods and keep it all right to keep your spacing correct. So that's why they bypass it, because it's easier than making the old system work. We may still have it bypassed, but I need it to work better, and right now it's not working at all. So I'm kind of curious if one of these, I'm going to fool with these connections and see, because we could not get it to crank at all. I'm curious if one of these connections was our problem with that, or if there's something else, because we just got to figure out what's keeping the starter from cranking. And my guess is somewhere in that switch, it's not getting power to the starter. That, or the heat has fried another starter solenoid, which is another problem. The starter is right next to the header on these, to the exhaust, and they get really hot, and then they stop working when they get hot. So it may be that that's completely out again, but I'm thinking it's more likely wiring, but we probably still do need a heat shield to keep our starter from going out. Or there's a system someone told me about just today about how to kind of bypass that starter solenoid and put a remote starter solenoid so that you're not having an issue with that one going out. So may end up doing that, but I got to order parts for that. So see if any of these wires are causing some of our problems. All right, got the power back on. Okay, we have power. Let's see what happens here. Nothing. Okay, we need to disconnect. We need to disconnect our fuel pump, or we're going to be spilling gas all over the place up here. So let me get that disconnected. Alright guys, I need you to do me a favor. I need you to tell me if this gets any voltage right here. I've got it hooked up to the wire that goes to the starter solenoid, so that's our trigger wire that tells the starter to spin. So I need to know if I'm getting voltage to here, so if I'm getting voltage to here, or if it's something beyond this. So I've got a splice here, I think a splice or two in there, so I need to know if that side's my issue or if on down is my issue. So I need y'all to help me out, tell me if there's voltage. Alright, so leave me a comment and tell me what you think that means. I think it means that I'm not getting voltage through the button properly. So maybe one of my splices is bad, maybe one of the buttons is bad. I know I'm getting voltage on the front end of the button, but I'm not getting voltage coming out of the button. So somewhere between here and there, I'm going to disconnect this completely and check it again, just going straight back to the button in case this other wire being hooked up is causing an issue. But I'm going to trace it back to the button. If I'm still not getting proper voltage, then I think it's somewhere between here and the button. I hope. All right, time for experiment number 2. I disconnected the black wire that's coming from the button, and it does have 12 volts when the button is pressed when the purple wire is not connected. So now I got this wire hooked up to the battery, and we're going to try to just touch it to the purple wire and try not to get shocked and see what happens. Okay, so with 12 volts going to that wire, you can hear the solenoid doing something, but the starter is still not cranking. That could be, I don't know what that is. So I got some more to investigate here. Could be low voltage, my battery might be a little low, or it could be something else. Let's do some more experimenting. All right, time to try the old, here's our old starter. We're going to try the old jump it from the hot to the starter and bypass the starter solenoid trick and see if our starter solenoid is fried yet again. We think that's what was going on with this one. This one still works sometimes, but it was having the same issue as the one we have on there now. So I'm going to bypass the starter solenoid and see what's going on there. See if the starter cranks. Maybe I won't get shocked. Alright, I pulled the starter off, and here's what I've found. The starter seems to be good. The starter solenoid seems to be good. Both of these are functional starters. I'm going to put the new one back on it. I'm going to re-terminate the ends of the wires going down there. Put the starter back in, see what happens with that. I'm thinking we're not getting sufficient power to the starter. Like, we've got a dirty terminal. I'm going to clean one of them. I'm going to redo the others because they were partially cracked. So I'm going to rework some wiring, and then we'll hook it back up and see what it does from there. And then I've got to rework these wires that go back into the buttons, so that those are solid connections and not wires wrapped and taped. And maybe if I get all the connections solid, that will fix it. If it doesn't, well, I don't know. So that's what I'm going to do, but I'm not going to do it tonight because it's late and I'm getting tired. So I'll try to come back to this tomorrow night. Well guys, it's another day at the shop working on the tow truck. I've actually been over here working on it for a while, but we've had customers in here and been doing some stuff for them, so haven't been filming because we've had a bunch of stuff going on in here. But I've been working on the starter and the ignition, and starter's back in because I tested the starter and starter solenoid last night and it was good. So starter is back in. I've redone the connections on the wires. I've cleaned up the ones I didn't redo. I've removed, well, I haven't removed the button, but I removed the wiring for the push button start. I have gone through all the wiring in the ignition. I put a new ignition switch in it, and I fixed the switch going to the clutch that had been disconnected. There's so much stuff that had been done to this thing to make it go through the button instead of going through the ignition, probably because of a bad ignition switch. But now she's running off the ignition like factory, like it's supposed to be, and I ripped so much wiring out from under the dash. I mean, not that much really, but quite a bit. The old radio, all this junk. And I got a little bit more to remove, but it's actually running. Well, it's not running yet, but the starter is acting properly. We don't have loose connections, we don't have janky wires. I got a few more things to do on that, but that is pretty much fixed. Now I'm gonna have to get started on the carb. I just went and bought a new carburetor. It's not what I wanted to do, but after some research and talking to some people that have worked on these, I think we're having issues with the floats in there not stopping the fuel from coming into the carb. And from my understanding is once those, there's like some deals that slide up and down in there, once those go out or start sticking, there's basically nothing you do. I looked at rebuild kit, but it wasn't going to fix that from what I could tell. So bit the bullet. I'm going to put a new carb on it, even though I'll probably take the carb off as soon as I can get a Howell TBI system. But this should get us up and running fairly reliably. Hopefully the distributor's still good. So I'm going to swap the carb and clean up a few more wires, and then we'll see if we can get this thing tuned a little bit and actually get it to run. I'm thinking we're getting close. So let's get to work on a little more wiring and a carburetor. Look who's here.
who's here. It's 4:30 in the afternoon.
Exactly. Look who's still here at 4:30 in the afternoon. Look, what is that?
Onion rings. Because it's 4:30 in the afternoon.
Actually sounds pretty good. So I also got a heat shield for the starter to help with the starter solenoid getting too hot. So I'm going to see if this thing will fit on there. And hopefully that will help with our issues. Once we get the new exhaust in, we're going to wrap the exhaust probably all the way back to help with heat coming up through the floorboards and heat in the engine bay. But that will be later, not right now. All right, that's our heat shield right there. It just wraps around the starter, so the exhaust is right there. This is exhaust pipe. So the starter and the exhaust are super close. We will see if that helps with the starter solenoid getting too hot. All right, time for this one to go and this one to go on. Because I'm cool like that.
There's some Voss. A pair of Voss grips right there, and there should be a pair in the toolbox.
I'm just not accustomed to fancy toys. We dump that down there on headers. It's not gonna have much fuel in it anyway. Probably doesn't really matter. Dirt dauber nest.
That's good for it.
Another dirt dauber nest. There was one of those up under the dash somewhere too. Oh man.
Did it go all the way?
No.
Oh.
I didn't hear it hit the ground. Where did you go?
Oh, because you're over cat litter.
That or
No, it did not.
it's probably in the fan shroud here somewhere. I don't know where it went.
What was it?
Socket. 10 millimeter. No, it wasn't. And we'll have this done by. I'm gonna try to get this running tonight.
Awesome. Did I give you the keys to this stuff?
Yes. All right, new carb is on. Still need a few hose clamps and some spots, but it's on. Now, the fun part's gonna be, well, for one, let's see if it starts and runs. Two, it's gonna be a lot of tuning, but I may not do that today. I may let Tim do that. May let him spend some time tuning this thing. I don't know. I want to also get it figured out. Let's see, let's get a fuel pump running and see what happens, and then see if this old girl will fire up maybe. adjustments to make, but it's better than it was before. So we'll see if we can't get some tuning done, get this thing dialed in a little bit better on the carburetor, and do some more testing on it. Well, I took it for a short spin, and it's already feels more powerful and driving better with better throttle response than it ever did with the old carburetor. And I haven't done any adjustments on it yet, so that's just out of the box. So that is a good sign that we may have made a good decision in swapping the carburetor. I'm going to take it down to the gas station, put some gas in it. This all started because I ran out of gas, and then all these other problems, well, some of the others were already there, but I need to find out if it's going to stop starting when it gets hot like it was before, or if we've solved that issue. And I need to put gas in it before we run out, so I'm going to take it for a little longer spin, and we'll see what happens. That didn't feel normal. I think my gas pedal just came undone. Yep, that little throttle cable right there. That's your problem. Definitely need to make some adjustments on that thing. Well guys, I brought the truck home. I'm going to take it out this weekend, do some test driving on it. You can watch that over on my personal Trove Wanted YouTube channel, or Trove Wanted Adventures on Instagram. But it's running pretty good. I think we still got some adjustments to do on the carb, or maybe the distributor. It's idling a little funny when it gets hot. We might have a misfire. I'm not sure. There's still some stuff that needs to be done, but I'm going to take it out and test drive it. We also got the Midland radio hooked up, so me and Sarah will be able to talk back and forth on the radio while we're cruising. So we're going to take it out and do some testing.